Actually, I want to talk a little bit about your failed second marriage, which you referred to a couple of times
Yeah,
in the Naropa commencement speech. And you
yeah.
said,
It's a big.
it's not the reason that I became a nun was and that is the rumor out there, the legend, if you will, is
Oh
that
yeah.
you wanted to kill your second husband, and therefore the next step was the monastery.
Oh, I
Next
see. Yeah.
step
Oh, I
monastery.
didn't know that that
Yeah,
was it.
that's the rumor, at least as I've heard it. So I'm curious, why did you actually become a nun if that wasn't the cause?
Well, it's very interesting because I was at Lama Foundation in northern New Mexico, and it was right after that marriage had broken up, and I was still there in northern New Mexico, and I was up at Lama Foundation with my son, and I was wearing this purple dress, and I was standing in a field, and I had long blonde hair, and it was blowing in the wind, and I had this kind of picture of myself as being very beautiful. And the rabbi is that famous rabbi who died recently,
Zolman Schachter?
Zalman Schachter. He was there. And he came up to me and he said, I just had a very clear vision of you. I don't know what I thought he was going to say. I felt like a goddess or something, who knows? Just had this very clear vision of you as a nun standing in a cloistered garden. And I was just stunned, speechless, because he might as well have said, I saw you as a tight-lipped, no sexual energy,
Yeah.
Uptight, mean-spirited,
Yeah.
nasty person, and particularly, certainly not beautiful and not sensual, like just the opposite. And it was just so insulting to me, and it's like such a shock. I think I didn't say anything. I just was speechless, and because nun had such a negative connotation for me. I had been raised Catholic, and I had some bad experiences with nuns, So I never, in my wildest dreams, thought that I would become a nun. I would have just done anything not to become a nun, if I was somehow being forced that way. But what happened was that I became more and more interested in Buddhism. I was in England, my children with their father for the summer. I was in England at a meditation center there where I was living for the summer. I would go there every summer. And the 16th Gawa Karmapa, who turned out to be a very important figure in my life, came to England, and he was offering the ordination, the nuns and monks' ordinations in Scotland at Samyling Center there. And everyone in our center, which is about 30 of us, or 25 of us or so, everyone was saying, should I, shouldn't I? It just became the topic of the whole community. And strange but true, I just said, that's forward. That is forward for me. And once I had the thought that it was forward, then not doing it was backward. And by forward, I meant I'm getting passionately interested in spiritual awakening, and this is forward for me. This is the method for doing it. I thought, I don't want to get married again, that's for sure. I have, since the marriage broke up, I've had relationships, and they were very, very enjoyable sexual relationships. But since I don't want to get married, and I can't see myself having an endless string of sexual relationships that don't lead someplace. I mean, all that whole approach just didn't make sense to me anymore. And I was very young. I think I was 35, but I felt like I had actually completed that phase of my life. That was the feeling, is I have completed that phase of my life. And forward now is symbolized by becoming a nun. So once I had that thought, There was like no turning back. So I sort of like had a passion for it. And an old lover said, well, what did you do with all that passion? And I said, well, I just sort of, it just got redirected naturally. It was like, for me, the next step. So, and also I knew, because I lived in community there, which was not a monastic community, but that it wasn't going to be some like cloistered situation where everybody was saintly, and I was Trungpa Rinpoche's student, so there was no chance of that. So it didn't represent that at all, like avoiding the pain of being left, avoiding the pain of not being lovable. It wasn't anything about that. It was more, as it turned out, making friends with all those feelings and really fully owning them and not in any way avoiding them. And I didn't know all that at the time. But forward for me, that was part of it, was all of that bad feelings about myself that came up around that divorce. I worked something through, I worked something through. And becoming a nun allowed me to do it even as almost like my full-time occupation.